Hard White is Melanie Dugan's fifth novel, a story that explores the life of Alice Neel, a groundbreaking American painter who revolutionized the art of the portrait in the 20th century. Melanie joins me in the studio today to tell us more about Hard White. Melanie, welcome.
Thank you.
And congratulations, this is your fifth novel.
It is, yes. Thank you.
It's amazing. Good for you. Tell me about Hard White and the character involved in it.
It's a novel, not a biography, so it's fiction, about Alice Neel, who was a groundbreaking American painter. She lived from 1900 to 1984, through a lot of stuff, World War I, World War II, and she was a force of nature, and I think she was also a piece of work some of the time. Yes.
And so what, a little bit about her family, just include that right now so we know what is a little bit about what's going on in the story.
Her father worked for the railroad, and by all accounts he was sort of preoccupied or sort of absent, remote. Her mother, one of her relatives described her mother as a great Victorian. She followed the rules, had a sense of propriety. Alice's older brother died soon after Alice was born, and then there were several other brothers and a sister, and Alice was the youngest. And another brother was born after her, yes.
And the social time, the time she was born, 1900, all of those things contributed to what Alice felt so uncomfortable about in the book. I can see that as I read it, but also there was other factors that controlled how she did things and what she did.
Yes.
And some of those factors were who?
Well, I think some of it was Alice's character. I think she was quite reactive. So she was the kind of person who, if you said to her, if you wanted her to do something, you would say, don't do that. And she was almost driven to do it. She also ran into resistance in her family. So when she said, I'm going to be a painter, her mom said, well, why would you do that? You're just a girl. And that was sort of the overriding sense of the time. Women didn't necessarily go to school, the boys were educated, they would have jobs, and she was going to get married and have children. And so her temperament in her time didn't always work well together.
How did Alice, though, continue? You mentioned her wanting to paint.
Yes.
How did she continue to carry on, even though there was barriers all the way along for her? How was she able to establish and get control of that dream?
Okay, she did win awards at art school, so she was recognized. People realized early on she was very talented. And then she married her husband, and they were both painters. I would say perhaps contrariness was a big driver. She felt that she was going to do this regardless. And when, in fact, there were periods when she couldn't paint, she struggled with what I think we'd say depression now, but mental health issues. So painting kept her stable, it seemed to me. That was my reading of reading her life, and seeing periods of not painting led to sort of, she became quite unhappy and ill. Yeah.
It was quite the time. It was quite the time to begin with. I mean, I look at what was going on politically, the wars,
Yes.
deceptions from people, social conditions that changed things. She had to deal with it not only as a person, but as a woman,
Yes.
or a child who was growing into a woman, and that affected the outcome of what she decided to move forward to. All the way through, you paint every page that picture of her childhood, of how she looks at things. She remembered at a certain age the color of the walls. She sees things, she describes what she's looking at on a windowsill. And all the way through this book, there are words that paint the whole picture of this novel. including the information about what she's painted
Yes.
on some of in some of the chapters, which is absolutely amazing. So there must have been a lot of research going on. What was the hardest chapter or part of the book to write?
There were parts that were formally challenging, and then there were parts that were emotionally challenging because she had a really challenging life. There's a period, she lost her first child to diphtheria, and a year later there was a vaccine that would have prevented that. There was a schism between her and her daughter that just caused her a lot of pain. And then how to write something that took in almost the whole 20th century without turning it into a history lesson. That was quite challenging.
So this book is something that everybody should pick up if they enjoy experiencing art. Also, there are surprises in there about ghosts, but we're not going to go into that. I want to know more about where people can buy your book.
Novel Idea on Princess Street. They have it, and if you're in Kingston, Oscar will get it to you. They set that up during COVID. They will deliver. There is also Woodpecker Lane Press. Their website, you can contact them and they'll set up, they will get books to you, and I will get books to people too.
Do you have a book launch around Kingston, timing-wise and so on?
October 30th at Novel Idea. Oscar's very kindly having a book launch, yes. Yeah.
So on the very last page of this book, the canvas reveals the truth. What I paint reveals who I am. What I paint is my story. And that is such an amazing closing to that. So, who is Alice Neel?
I am Alice, she says, yes. And she certainly was. She's a remarkable person. Yeah, she was.
I certainly enjoyed the book.
Thank you very much.
And I'm happy that you came today to share this with us.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, April.
Thank you.